women in the 1930s in the workforce and in the army. There are many things that led to inequality and equality throughout the 1930s. Today we will be exploring the events leading up to the 1930s, the events during those times, and the aftermath that shows today. First, we begin with the events leading up to the 1930s. One of the most major ones was the Great Depression. The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in the history of the industrialized world, lasting from 1929 to 1930. Shortly after the stock market crash, which was another major event leading to the inequality of women. To explain some of our experiences, we have Helen Wick.
Well, there wasn't any money. I wore hand-me-downs, and I remember feeling so badly one Easter. No new shoes. I could wear an old cast-off pair of my sister's. Well, they were comfortable. Another thing, my older sister was teaching school, so she was wearing fairly good dresses, but instead of taking the dress apart and adapting it for my age, they just cut it down and it fit me. But here I was with some satin and braid and so forth going off to school, and a little hard to play at recess time in it. But, well, we all were kind of in the same boat. Our neighbors, they couldn't do as much as they wanted to do and so forth.
The Great Depression was only one of the major lead-ups. Some of the other included the Hindenburg disaster and the Dust Bowl. The Hindenburg disaster was the crash of the Germany airship, which was supposed to lead the new air travel industry. This further fed the Great Depression, as the air industry was kind of broken because of that, because people did not feel that this new ship was deemed safe. The Dust Bowl was in one of the other lead-ups, and was a series of severe dust storms that helped feed the Great Depression because there was a stop to agricultural growth and caused many people to lose jobs and things like that. The last couple major things that helped especially the women in the workforce were the fact that women were given the right to vote in the 1920s, which changed the way women began to think and gave women the ability to achieve more rights. One of the smaller things that gave a little increase into the current events were the stay-at-home mothers that stayed at home and did not work. This was before the Great Depression, when they were not required to work, which helped lead up to the current time in the 1930s where they were required to work to get their family money and food and basically support an entire family. Next, we begin to discuss the details of the event. We move into the 1930s, where women were not given barely any rights at all, and only nurses in the war had the best education because they were sent to the best schools so they could make sure to learn that the people in the war would be taken care of safely. The only other way women could work in the war was through the WASP program, which was a Women Air Force Service program that let them fly planes and engage in battles. This was one of the only ways women could work, and that was called the WASPs. Even though women were highly prejudiced, they were still counted as people during the war because many were taken hostage by the Japanese soldiers because they were put to work and basically abused and taken advantage of. Meanwhile, the other side of the 1930s, not involving the war, were the workforce, which involved the increase of women needing jobs because men started to fall back because of the Great Depression, so more people were needed for the workforce. But if a woman was lucky enough to get a job, wages would be very low, and it would be very hard to achieve money. As well, sexual harassment at the time was at an all-time high because, again, women just had achieved the right to vote in the 1920s. So they weren't given many rights. It was very hard to achieve rights back then because a lot of people still thought that men should be the all over-demand people. But one of the good things that happened during the end was that the feminist movement began to take more control and start moving, because the Rosie Riveter came along, and things that basically started the feminist movement started in the late 1930s. So if it weren't for that, there wouldn't be equal rights in the workforce, and this basically led to the modern society and events in the future. Now the feminist movement has led to more equality across the world in the military and the workforce. So now we're looking at the parallels to modern society and how things have necessarily changed or even stayed the same throughout history. There's definitely more motives to strive for equality now, like trying to get a higher HDI, which is Human Development Index. Basically reflects a country's developmental progress. As well, going along with that, there's the GII, which is the Gender Inequality Index, which looks at the wages of women, the literacy rates, and the chance at survival. The higher developed countries have a higher HDI and a lower GII, meaning that they're more developed, but they also have a higher gender equality rate. Meanwhile, in lesser developed countries, you'll find a higher GII, which basically means that there's not very many women in the workforce. Women are being, paid the same amount, which shows that countries that are more developed, people want to go to. There will be more money, more revenue. Tourists will go there. So the higher HDI and lower GII you have means that you'll eventually make more money from tourists and everything like that. As well, people have started to pick up on the feminist movement, not only females but males, which if people want to be happy and not cause right-out war, they're going to strive to be the same and be on the right side. So the feminist movement has definitely picked up a lot of speed. Now, military equality is now at an all-time high, as people in the military are given rights not based on gender or rank, because people now realize that women can do just the same amount of work as men can. As well, now women in the workforce are treated equally or even given higher positions like CEO or COO, when women back then were only given employee rates or even lower than that, like dishwasher, scrubbing, doing all these sad jobs that weren't, necessarily given, that weren't necessarily even paid the right amount they should be. Now women are getting the same amount of interviews, they're getting chances, same amount of chances, same wage, everything like that. So women in the workforce have definitely improved. As well, stay-at-home women are not as high because people want to fight for themselves. They're more independent. Women are giving more chances, so they're not stay-at-home moms anymore, which basically means that their family life at home is different than it was back then, because women would stay home, do all the chores, do all the dishes, do all the cooking, all of that. Now, women are getting more chances at earning jobs, striving to be better people in the community, and honestly just getting jobs. So now the life in the house is a lot different, because the man might do more jobs of cooking, cleaning, doing all of these things, which basically has led to more equality throughout the time. Overall, there are a lot of things that have led to the inequality and equality of women throughout the 1930s and overall just now. Yet these three subtopics we discussed, the beginning of the intro and the events leading up to it, the precipitating events, the details of the event, and the parallels to modern society have helped us break down these sectors and helped solve the fact of women throughout time. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.